Welcome, history buffs and aviation enthusiasts. Today, we're retaking a deep dive into the skies of the Second World War to explore every major British aircraft that helped shape the course of the conflict. From the desperate defense of the home islands to the final push for victory, British air power was absolutely crucial. The Royal Air Force and Fleet Air Arm, backed by brilliant designers and tireless factory workers, created a fleet of aircraft that were adaptable, rugged, and constantly evolving. These weren't just machines. They were the very instruments of survival and triumph. So, strap in as we journey through this complete historical account, from iconic fighters to legendary bombers and everything in between. Let's start with the fighters, the guardians of the sky. First up, the Supermarine Spitfire. Even if you know just one plane from this era, it's probably this one. Entering service in 1938, its sleek, elliptical wings weren't just for looks, they gave it incredible speed and agility. The Spitfire became the poster child of the Battle of Britain, dueling with enemy fighters and intercepting bombers. But it didn't stop there. With constant upgrades to its engine and firepower, it served on every front, adapting to roles from high-altitude interception to photo reconnaissance, right until the war's end. It was, and remains, a true legend. But the Spitfire didn't win the Battle of Britain alone. Its partner in that desperate fight was the Hawker Hurricane. While perhaps less glamorous, the Hurricane was the workhorse of RAF Fighter Command. It was tough, easier to build and repair in the heat of battle, and devastatingly effective against bombers. In fact, Hurricanes were responsible for the majority of enemy aircraft shot down during the Battle of Britain. Its versatility saw it modified for ground attack, night fighting, and even naval operations, proving its worth across the globe. Then there was the Belt and Pole Defiant, an unconventional design. Instead of forward-firing guns, it had a 4-gun turret behind the pilot. The idea was to fly alongside bombers and let the gunner have at them. It had some early, surprising successes against unescorted bombers, but it was a sitting duck for enemy fighters. Its vulnerability meant it was quickly withdrawn from day fighting and found more suitable roles as a night fighter and a training aircraft. Now, let's turn to the machines that took the fight to the enemy's heartland, the bombers. Leading the charge was the Avro Lancaster, Britain's premier heavy bomber. This four-engine giant was the backbone of Bomber Command's nighttime strategic bombing campaign. It could carry a massive bomb load, including the specialized bouncing bombs used in the legendary Dam Busters raid. Its reliability and sheer capacity to deliver punishment to Germany's industrial centers made it an indispensable part of the Allied war effort. Flying alongside the Lancaster was the Handley Page Halifax. Another key four-engine heavy bomber, the Halifax served diligently throughout the war. While the Lancaster often gets more of the spotlight, the Halifax was a truly versatile aircraft. It not only flew countless bombing missions but also served in maritime patrol, hunting U-boats, and as a transport aircraft, dropping supplies and paratroopers. It was a true multi-role heavy hit. Britain's first four-engine heavy bomber was the Short Stirling. It entered service early in the war and played a vital role in the initial bombing campaigns. However, its design had a limitation. Its wingspan was restricted, which gave it a lower operational ceiling than the German anti-aircraft guns. This made it more vulnerable, and it was eventually phased out of the main bomber force. But the Stirling found a new lease on life as a glider tug and transport, playing a crucial part in airborne operations like D. And we can't forget the Vickers Wellington. In the early years of the war, the Wimpy, as it was nicknamed, was the most numerous British bomber. Its most unique feature was its geodesic airframe, a crisscrossing structure that made it incredibly strong and able to absorb huge amounts of damage and still fly home. It served with distinction in bombing raids, anti-submarine warfare, and as a trainer, proving its mettle in every theater. The war at sea was just as critical, and naval aviation played a huge part. Here we find one of the most remarkable aircraft of the war, the Fairey Swordfish. It looked like it belonged in a museum, a fabric-covered biplane in an age of monoplanes. But this string bag was incredibly effective. Its low speed and stability made it a perfect platform for launching torpedoes. Swordfish were responsible for crippling the Italian fleet at Taranto and famously helped hunt down the German battleship Bismarck, an outdated design that delivered devastating results. Intended to replace the Swordfish was the Fairey Albacore. It was a more modern biplane with a more powerful engine and an enclosed cockpit for the crew. While it was an improvement in many ways, it never quite captured the magic of its predecessor and never fully replaced the Swordfish, serving in smaller numbers on escort carriers. The true modern successor was the Fairey Barracuda. This was a carrier-based monoplane designed as a torpedo and dive bomber. It was a powerful and distinct-looking aircraft with its high-mounted wing and deep fuselage. The Barracuda's most famous actions were its repeated dive-bombing attacks against the German battleship Tirpitz hidden away in a Norwegian fjord, which helped to neutralize the threat it posed to Allied convoys. Back on land, air power was essential for supporting ground troops, and for that, you needed specialized aircraft. Enter the Hawker Typhoon. Originally designed as a high-altitude interceptor, engine troubles plagued its early career, but once it was retasked for low-level ground attack, it found its true calling. Armed with 4 cannons and a payload of powerful rockets, the Tiffy became the terror of German tank columns in the Battle of Normandy, playing a decisive role in the breakout. The lessons learned from the Typhoon led to its successor, the Hawker Tempest. This was one of the fastest and most powerful piston engine fighters of the war. It was faster, more agile, and had better performance at all altitudes. The Tempest excelled in 2 key roles: shooting down German V-1 flying bombs, and taking on the advanced German jet and rocket fighters in the final months of the war. It was the pinnacle of British piston engine fighter design. So many of these missions depended on knowing what the enemy was doing, which brings us to reconnaissance aircraft. And here, one aircraft stands out for its sheer brilliance: the de Havilland Mosquito. Known as the Wooden Wonder because it was built almost entirely of wood, the Mosquito was a masterpiece of design. It was so fast that early versions didn't even need defensive guns. They could simply outrun enemy fighters. It was incredibly versatile, serving as a high-speed bomber, a potent night fighter, a pathfinder, and, of course, a photo-reconnaissance aircraft, a truly exceptional machine. While the Mosquito scouted over land, the short Sunderland patrolled the vast oceans. This huge 4-engine flying boat was the ROF's primary maritime patrol aircraft, nicknamed the Flying Porcupine by the Germans for its heavy defensive armament. The Sunderland had an immense range, allowing it to stay on patrol for hours. It was a guardian angel for Allied convoys during the Battle of the Atlantic, hunting and sinking U-boats and rescuing downed airmen. Of course, none of this would be possible without transport and utility aircraft. The most famous is the Douglas Dakota. Though an American design, the C-47, it was used extensively by the British and known as the Dakota. This rugged, reliable workhorse was the unsung hero of logistics. It ferried troops, carried supplies, and dropped paratroopers in every major airborne operation, from Normandy to Arnhem. It was the lifeline of the Allied armies. An older but equally important utility plane was the Avro Anson. This twin-engine aircraft was a jack-of-all-trades. It started the war in coastal patrol roles, but its most important contribution was as a training aircraft. Thousands of pilots, navigators, and bomb-aimers who would later fly in Lancasters and Halifaxes learned their trade in the Faithful Annie. Training was the foundation of the entire air effort. The first step for almost every RAF pilot was the de Havilland Tigermoth. This simple, forgiving biplane was the perfect primary trainer. Its gentle handling characteristics made it ideal for teaching the absolute basics of flight. Countless pilots from across Britain and the Commonwealth earned their wings in a Tigermoth. Once pilots mastered the basics, they moved on to more advanced trainers like the Airspeed Oxford. This twin-engine monoplane was used to prepare crews for multi-engine aircraft. It had stations for a pilot, navigator, and bomb aimer or gunner, simulating the environment of a bomber. That Oxford was crucial in creating the skilled crews needed to fly Britain's bomber fleet into combat. Finally, we arrive at the dawn of a new era: jet power. Britain's first operational jet fighter was the Gloucester Meteor. It entered service in the summer of 1944, a historic milestone. Its primary mission was to intercept the V-1 flying bombs, a task for which its high speed was perfectly suited. While it saw very limited air-to-air combat against other aircraft, the Meteor's arrival signaled the end of the piston engine era and marked the beginning of a new age for the Royal Air Force. In conclusion, the story of British aircraft in World War II is one of incredible innovation, resilience, and adaptation. From the legendary Spitfire to the mighty Lancaster and the versatile Mosquito, these machines were more than just metal, wood, and wire. They were the embodiment of a nation's determination to fight and win against overwhelming odds. They defended the skies, patrolled the seas, and carried the fight to the enemy, leaving a lasting legacy in the annals of aviation history. Thank you so much for joining us on this historical flight. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into military history. Let us know in the comments which aircraft is your favorite. We'll see you in the next one.